process where we collect data and do a clinical interview, do all of these assessments, and we put all of that together, and then we have a diagnosis. Okay. So the WAIS, or the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, is the most widely used intelligence scale. Okay. They have a version for school-age children as well as for preschoolers, all right? And it consists of 11 subtests. There's 6 verbal and 5 performance, and this takes a good few hours to do. So usually for kids from the age of 6 upwards to your age and older, this is the IQ assessment that you would get done. Okay. So you have vocabulary similarities, again, timed, and there are questions that you are asked and that you respond to, okay? And it has to be culture sensitive, because you can't ask people here questions that are relevant to other parts of the country, like other parts of the world, like people here wouldn't know the president of wherever, it has to be culture sort of sensitive. So your fund of vocabulary similarities is something like, how are apples and oranges alike? How are they different? How is a dog and a cat alike? How are they different? So, you see the responses, and then you have a scoring system. Arithmetic tests your basic math principles. Okay. The digit span is a really important test for attention. So what happens is you give a person a bunch of numbers, and you ask them to repeat them forward, like they just say them as they heard them, and then reverse backwards, okay? So in order to do that, you need to really be very attentive, okay? Information is your fund of information, and usually, if you have a low score here, guys in the back, okay? A low score here just means that you're not somebody who reads a lot, or you don't live in a very sort of enriched environment, okay? So this is something you can actually improve. Comprehension is your ability to understand things that you read, okay? Or things that you hear. So you can have somebody who scores high on most, but for example, scores low on comprehension. And that could indicate that maybe this person has a learning problem, okay? So maybe they're dyslexic, or they have a reading disorder, okay? For the performance, okay, there's 5 tests, and they involve, giving people pictures, they assemble, or sort of putting pictures together, or designs like block designs. I'm not going to go into specifics of them, but you kind of get a score for each one, an average of 10. 10 is an average number for each one of these, okay? And at the end, you're given a verbal IQ score and a performance IQ score and a total score. The importance here is that some people have problems with, for example, language. Someone who's language delayed. So you can still assess their abilities, because you're going to be getting more of their performance score. If you have a discrepancy that is marked, like more than 20 or 30 points between your verbal and your performance, then you're thinking organic. Okay? So it points to maybe there's something going on with this person's brain, because you should not have much of a difference between them. So there should be about 20 points different between. Okay. Now the Stanford-Binet, I told you to use it for, yeah. Sorry?
Should this test be used in the native language?
Should, yeah. So it should be performed in the language that you're, So if you're somebody who doesn't speak Arabic, and the person doing it is doing it in English or through a translator, it doesn't work. Okay. So the Stanford-Binet has four parts. It assesses verbal reasoning, abstract reasoning, quantitative reasoning, short-term memory, and then you get a result sort of based on a composite. Okay. So just sort of general points about the ethics of psychological assessment. Now, when we do an assessment, it belongs to the patient, okay? So if you're an adult, then you get the result, you get the assessment, and then you share it with whoever you need to share it with, okay? If it's a child, it's given to the parents, they share it with whoever. So I don't have the right to give a psychological report to a school, even if schools, sorry?
Confidentiality.
Yeah, so ethically, you cannot do that, okay? Also, ethically, you cannot remove important information from a psychological report. For example, a child is autistic or mentally retarded and parents ask you, can you please not include that in the report because it's going to affect what the school says. So that you cannot do because that's sort of the core of the whole assessment. But like if there's sort of general family dynamics, issues at home, I usually ask family if they want that included or not because it's not really relevant to the schools what's going on at home. So that is something you can delete from the report. You still have it in your own notes, okay? But it's not relevant. Cultural, again, we said it has to be very culture specific and sensitive, okay? The usefulness of tests, it's important to not abuse them, okay? So if you had someone tested like 2-3 months ago, we don't test them again until a year has passed because otherwise it's not of any use. Yesterday, one of the students says she does online, I don't know, all these online things that she, does these assessments for herself. What happened? So what happens is if you sort of become familiar with these tests, then you're no longer test naive, okay? So it's important to have a gap or a distance between one test and another. You've forgotten sort of the lingo, and so it becomes more specific when you actually do the test. Okay, so this part, A&A. So the next section is probably something you're going to tell me, okay? So these are points that are really important for test construction. You've done that in statistics, okay? So these are very important for any test, okay? So who's going to tell me about standardization? Standardization, what does that mean? Not reading, that's something you guys did, right? So to make things the same level of difficulty, or easy, like to make it more constant. Okay. So the standardization is the process of defining meaningful scores relative to a pretest group. So basically, consistency. So the use of consistent techniques, right? Provides a population benchmark for comparison. And for standardization, it's the bell, right? The bell curve. What about reliability?
Just repeatability.
Okay.
Repeated it gets the same result.
Okay. Can people in the back hear that? Reliability? What is reliability? Because he just said it well.
No, reliability is the reproducing the same results.
Okay.
To the nearest.
So it's consistency in measurement. And again, the higher the correlation between the test, the retest, the higher the test reliability. Okay? What about validity?
How accurate the results they are compared to the true value.
Okay.
Here it is to the true value.
So it's the degree to which the test actually measures or predicts what it promises, okay? I'm definitely not going to get into this. You've done this in statistics, like construct, criterion, and content. You've done that?
Yes, of course.
Of course? Okay. So, and you were tested on that before?
Yes.
Okay. What about extremes of intelligence? A&A. Extremes of intelligence, what does that mean?
Either too intelligent.
So you guys are hopefully the higher end of the spectrum. Okay. Okay. So the low extreme, guys in the back, the low extreme is what we call mental retardation. I just want you to have an idea of this because, again, in previous years when we've talked about it, they've never heard of it and no one's ever told them about it, okay? The importance of identifying this subgroup is for learning, okay? So average IQ for most people is from 90 to 110, okay? So it's not like that's kind of the average, right? From 70 to 90, we talk about borderline IQ. So these are people who are slow learners, right? Below 70, you talk about mental retardation. It's divided into mild, moderate, and severe, and profound. People who have a mild mental retardation, they are still trainable, okay? So they may reach up to grade 6, and then they need to go on to more like vocational type work. So somebody who has a score of like 55 or 60, you would then advise their parents, try to get them to some sort of occupational something, so that they become a mechanic or a plumber or something like that, because they're not going to do well in the academic setting. Parents don't like to hear that, okay? But you have to be very matter of fact about it because that's sort of where they're headed, okay? Now, having the term mild is sometimes deceiving, okay? Because parents will tell you, but it's only a mild problem, okay? Yeah, so you tell them mild because there's worse, but it's that far. It's like 20, 30 points from where this child needs to be. Another problem that we see is where kids do grade 1 like 3 times and then grade 2 like another 3 times and they repeat in hope that they're going to catch up so that their mental and chronological age are going to become 1, and then we tell them again, it's no can do. The repetition doesn't help. Although there's like a lay kind of saying that we say in the curriculum and whatever, but it doesn't really apply here. All right. So people with moderate MR, again, they'll reach the grade 1 and grade 2, and then it's more like labor work. All right. Now, when you refer a child, there's guys in the 3rd row. When you refer a kid to a special needs school, all right, why do you think they take into account their mental sort of IQ? Why is that important?
So they know which level to put them on.
Okay. Which level to put them, or whether they should or should not even accept them. Okay. So somebody with a severe or profound level of mental retardation are not trainable. Okay. So these kids will not benefit from being anywhere because they're not going to learn. Okay. What do you do with them? You pretty much keep them at home. They need supervision 24/7. Okay. Because they're not able to process anything. Okay. Yes?
In this case, mostly they're like the main problem or
I mean, when they do surveys of children with mental retardation, for mostly they don't find the cause, but for some they do find all these sort of genetic or inborn errors of metabolism or some sort of a syndrome, okay? When we do see kids with MR, we do all sorts of assessments, and on most occasions everything is normal. So their MRI is normal, their blood works are normal. We don't always find a cause, all right? Are you stretching? Okay. So the high extreme are the gifted or the whiz kids, okay? So here you're talking about IQ of over 110, okay? Are they reading palms or what are you doing there?
I'll show you a genetic example.
Oh, okay. All right. So again, so most of us, you know, if you've made it to medical school and you're doing well, you're definitely in the upper end. Okay, but how high are you? You know, you only have to be tested, right? So remember Piaget? Yeah, okay. So this guy, by the age of 7, okay, he was given as an example, okay, by the age of 7, he was observing like birds and fossils and what have you. By the age of 15, he published a scientific article on mollusks. So this guy was pretty much a genius, okay? There's about 3 to 5% of children are gifted. So it's the sort of, you know, the bell curve. So you have the MR on one end and the gifted kids on the other. Okay. So the stability of intelligence. Because people say, like, maybe as you get older, you get more smart. Have you heard that? Yeah? Yes?
Yes, the older, the wiser.
So it's more like being wise. So it's not that your IQ actually increases, but your abilities improve, okay? All right, guys? All right. So around the age of 4 when we, guys. Around the age of 4 or 5 when we do assessments, you can find fluctuation. So sometimes they're acquiring skills and sometimes they're latent. So by around age 7, you're going to have the IQ that you're going to continue with the rest of your life. Okay, so let's say you're somebody who's in the range of 90 to 110. Okay. Okay. Let's say you're in the average range. You got a score of 95. Okay. So even if you improve on, like, say, your information, your verbal, maybe you'll jump up to like 100, 105, but you'll still stay in the same category. Okay. So you're still average IQ. Right? Somebody who has a borderline IQ, slow learner, may improve, like, and I've seen that a lot, they go from like 78 to 80, you know, 82, but they're still borderline, okay? The ones that are interesting are the ones that are at the verge, so somebody who's got an IQ of 87, 88, and then you help them, like, for example, they have ADHD, you get them started on medications, those can jump into being within the normal, because they had problems with their digit span because of their ADHD. Okay,